Hello noble ones, welcome back to my channel. This is the Metatron speaking, and we've got a new discovery. So let's see, is it good or is it nonsense? Alright, so what we're working with, Life Science says ancient DNA reveals early medieval England had people from sub-Saharan Africa. DNA study reveals. We'll check it. Archaeology News online magazine, ancient DNA reveals West African ancestry in 7th century England. The Independent, DNA testing of 1400-year-old skeletons reveal people of sub-Saharan African descent. BBC, skeletons with sub-Saharan grandparents found in Dorset, England, and so on and so forth. Now, we do know, even Cambridge, West African ancestry in 7th century England. Alright, so might start with Cambridge. But as you can see, several publications and articles, many of which are copycats, but at least, I mean, the Cambridge University Press shouldn't be a copycat in theory. Anyways, they are saying that they found some graves with West African ancestry DNA in some burials. Now, I hope that they provide some context. Clearly, considering the type of stuff that we've been seeing from the UK recently with all the situation whereby Anglo-Saxons, you shouldn't say it because it's colonialism, Eurocentric. Also, we need to cancel and censor ancient Greek because it's offensive. The Vikings were Muslims. I mean, we have seen all sorts of nonsense. So is this also nonsense? Maybe. Let's read and let's see what we've got. I'm going to start with the Cambridge one because hopefully it should I'm not reading freaking BBC. I mean, I might just for a laugh. But let's start with Cambridge. What are they telling us? West African ancestry in 7th century England to individuals from Kent and Dorset. All right. Archaeogenetics. The study of ancient DNA can reveal powerful insight into kinship and the movement of individuals in prehistory. Here, the authors report of the identification of two individuals with genetic profiles consistent with recent sub-Saharan African ancestry, both of whom were buried in an early medieval cemeteries in southern Britain. That's great, but what does prehistory have to do with, I don't know, maybe they'll explain. Focusing primarily on a sub-adult female from Uptown in Kent, the authors explore the societal and cultural context in which these individuals lived and died, please, and the widening geographical links indicated by their presence, pointing back to the Byzantine reconquest of North Africa in AD 533. Okay, introduction. Migration, its direction, scale and impact are much debated in European archaeology, especially in relationship to cultural change in the early Middle Ages. Archaeogenetics research provides new insight into this phenomenon at population scales, revealing direct kinship between individuals within cemeteries and in combination with stable isotope analysis identifying individual migrants and their lifeways. This article discusses two individuals buried. Okay, so we understand who they are discussing. Fantastic. The site, contiguous areas of the early Anglo-Saxon cemetery at Updown near Istry in Kent were excavated in advance of development under the direction of Sonia. Okay. In all 78 inhumation burials were uncovered primarily from the 7th century AD. Okay, so we are in 7th century League. Okay, that's the classification. Contextualization. The grave goods from Updown comprised dress accessories, weaponry, and personal accessories, including objects imported from the Frankish continent and the unusual Byzantine buckle. Antique when buried. Oh, antique when buried. So it was something that they preserved, right? Updown belongs to a cluster of cemeteries in East Kent and is only a few kilometers from the large Anglo-Saxon cemetery site at Finglesham. Okay, so what I'm expecting, maybe not from this, because this up to this point, it being from Cambridge, looks like it's done professionally, but I'm already expecting the copycat article saying, you see the Anglo-Saxons were black. That's what I'm expecting, to be honest, at this point, but let's see. The ADNA results from 18 individuals from Worth Matravels were analyzed previously. Here we consider grave 1633B, a 17 to 25-year-old male who shared a double grave with the unrelated adult male with a pillow stone. Kent has always been a conduit from influence from the adjacent continent, well, of course, for geographical reasons. That was so marked in the 6th century that Leeds proposed to call this Kent's Frankish phase. Wow. Dorset contrastingly sat between the distribution of Mediterranean imports from Atlantic trade routes and early Anglo-Saxon burial practices before the 7th century. It was not demonstrably fully incorporated within the Kingdom of Wessex before a bishopric was established at Sherborne, formerly British. Okay. Ancient DNA was retrieved from a petrous bone from Updown grave 47. And it was possible to reconstruct approximately half of the genome from the sequences. Single nucleotide polymorphism, okay, coverage on the autosome as well as relative coverage of the X and Y chromosome determined the sex of the individuals as female. Osteological evidence suggests that she died around the age of 11 to 13. A very, very early, poor thing. The maternal lineage of this individual represents mitochondrial DNA, haplogroup U5B1, which is common in Northern Europe. Right. yet her autosomal DNA shows clear signs of non-European ancestry. Okay, so it's a mixed individual. Population genetic investigation through principal components analysis, PCA, and outgroup F3 and F4 statistics reveals affinity towards present-day sub-Saharan Africans, especially the West African Yoruba, Mende, Mandekna, and Esan groups. Analysis of a DNA extracted from a petrous bone from Worth Matraverse grave 1633b resulted in similar observations. Both individuals thus show genetically and geographically mixed descent, with an estimated 20 to 40% ancestry characteristic of sub-Saharan Africa. Okay, so basically 20 to 40%. So these are mixed already. So you see, when you go and read the actual thing, they were not black, they were mixed. And then I see that a lot of the other people, the other bodies that they found were mostly related, as we can see. This was like a big family. Then we see there is one who says the male in grave 52 carries the Y chromosome haplogroup EV13, which is unusual in Northern Europe and more characteristic of Southern Italy, the Balkans and Greece. All right, so it's a very mixed, we could say, burial ground. But neither he nor his daughter, grave 34, or granddaughter, grave 45, exhibits any measurable sub-Saharan African ancestry. Okay, so only a few are sub-Saharan. Right. Then we read supervised admixture analysis indicates that most of the ancestry observed in samples EAS006 grave 52 and EAS001 from grave 34 and EAS002 from grave 45 has the continental Northern European profile that became dominant over much of England in the early Middle Ages. So, excuse me for a second, but how did this is what I mean when it comes like a freaking game of telephone. So they found this burial, there are a certain number of bodies. Among these bodies, we have people from Northern Europe, people from Southern Europe, and then you have some mixed individuals, and these mixed individuals are kind of half Nordic and with some sub-Saharan African ancestry in there. How does this become they found black people sub-Saharan in Kent? What? How? Why is that the thing they focus on if we see it's in fact a relative minute component and it's a mixed component, if anything? Thus, we may conclude that the admixture event was recent. The inferred admixture dates at estimated ancestry proportions implied that one parental grandparent of the individual within grave 47 was of entirely sub-Saharan African descent. Great, yeah, the absolutely, of course. And then we say, thus, early medieval individuals with West African ancestry are identified both in a part of Britain directly affected by the Anglo-Saxon migration and in a community characterized by genetic continuity through the Roman period from the Iron Age. Right, yes. All right, now in this section, they tell us about the objects that they found in the grave: knife, spoon, comb. I'll leave this for you if you want to check it out. Some of these were imported from Frankish Gaul and had Christian symbolism. So most likely these were Christians. And then we read this early medieval population included immigrants and their descendants, women. Well, yeah, in a port area, absolutely. I always say that there will be a small amount of immigrants, but also traders, for instance. Anyways, let's see. Women exogamously married and travelers passing through from near and far and use Christian symbolism. Right. So here we are reading that the discovery of recent sub-Saharan ancestry for two individuals who died and were buried as ostensibly typical members of their communities around the middle of the 7th century at separate sites in southern England adds a new dimension to data on long-distance movement and demographic interaction involving Britain. I mean, two individuals though. Is it? I mean, I don't want to be like the naysayer here. I mean, in fact, if anything, this is fascinating for me. Whenever I imagine how people traveled these distances in this time period. With that being said, how is two individuals found in these areas add a new dimension to data? I'm kind of missing the, I'm misunderstanding this perhaps, but I just don't understand how this changes everything. I know they didn't say it changes everything, but come on, it adds a new dimension to data on long distance movement and demographic, particularly demographic. I understand long distance movement, although then again, it's not like this is the first time we found some in York. So I don't know if it's on that side, it's not adding any new dimension since we already know that. And when it comes to demographic interaction involving Britain, does it too? I mean, if you found 173 out of a population of 300, then I'm like, man, we really added a new dimension of data when it comes to demographic interaction. When it's two, I don't know what to tell you, man. It just doesn't work with me. No, you didn't add any new dimension when it comes to interaction and immigration in Britain in the Middle Ages. Is it just me, or I don't know, but you tell me if I'm wrong. Feel free to explain to me why two changes new dimensions. North Africa had been a key region for the Roman Empire, that's correct, particularly for the grain and oil it could supply. True, but don't forget about Sicily. Roman imperial rule had itself succeeded earlier states in Egypt and Carthage, and the Roman army recruited African barbarian troops. I see you put barbarians in quotations. Absolutely, Africans were barbarians from the perspective of the Romans, just like the Gauls were, just like everyone wasn't a Roman and a Greek. We could give the Greek a pass. That's how it was, but whatever. For if you really don't want, this is what I mean. Whoever wrote this, if you don't like to use the word that the ancients used for whatever reason, rather than putting it into quotations, which kind of makes it obnoxious to me, just call them auxiliary. And you solved the problem. Am I right? From the western provinces of Mauretania, Numidia, who served and could eventually settle across the empire. That's absolutely correct, but just because you're from northern Africa doesn't mean you're black. Just underlining the obvious. If you're enjoying this video so far, please take a moment to check out my Patreon page. With as little as a $5 support, you can help us ensure that we can continue to produce high quality and high researched content. And at the same time, you get access to polls, extra videos, unlisted streams, and much more. Thank you so much. Even so, detailed knowledge of Africa in ancient Greece and Rome was limited to the Mediterranean coastlands, yes, bordered to the south by the Atlas Mountains and the Sahara, of course, besides the Nile Valley and the Red Sea trade routes leading to East Africa and Asia. Yeah, because people always forget, particularly the Afrocentrists, that Africa and Asia are physically connected. They are physically connected. Alright, then, counting 2 to 4 generations, about 25 years back from the mid-7th century implies that the genetically part African individuals buried at Updown and Worth Matravers were descended from ancestors who probably left the southern Sahel between the mid-6th and the early 7th century. This points to the period of Byzantine control of North Africa, as that in which whatever contacts and exchanges facilitated the distinctive genetic makeup of these people were embedded. Right. By the late 6th and 7th century, Byzantine cultural preeminence was highly influential, even in distant England. Absolutely. Byzantine coins made their way via the continent to Britain, and Byzantine costume and jewelry fashions. Okay, we understand that. Conclusion. Easily found then was the African maiden on the ocean's shore adorned with gold. The Updown girl, her aunt and grandmother were buried close to the royal centre in the period which produced the 7th century Kentish law codes. These explicit, if summary laws concerned wives, widows, divorcees and their children, demonstrate that the part line of husband and father was fundamental to social identity and rights. Of course, yes, even in Rome. And so her father was potentially known to the community. But as far as I understand, his father was from there. Archaeological, literary and historical sources help us to contextualize this unexpected but congruent new information from archaeogenetics on the breadth of horizon informing the early medieval sphere. Right, well, a little underwhelming. Interesting, I'll give him that. It is interesting to see this, but it still is a little underwhelming, if I can say so myself. Let me have a look at what BBC has to say. All right, what does BBC have to say? Come on, BBC, hit me. Archaeological dig finds medieval children in England with African grandparents. A boy and a girl who lived in medieval England likely had grandparents from Africa, according to new findings by archaeologists. The DNA from the skeletons, which are over 1,000 years old, was tested. The boy was found in a medieval cemetery in Dorset, and the girl was found in a cemetery in Kent. The archaeologists said they were surprised to find early medieval skeletons with grandparents from so far away. Didn't they find some in York anyways? The scientists originally tested the DNA, 23 bodies. When they studied their DNA, most of the skeletons buried there had either Northern European or Western British and Irish ancestry. Okay. But scientists were amazed to find that one person at each cemetery had a recent ancestor from West Africa. In fact, the team found that recent ancestor from. So, as I was saying, these are mixed. In fact, the team found that between 20 to 40% of the ancestry in the skeleton was from sub-Saharan Africa. They even revealed that individuals had similar DNA groups living in West Africa right now, such as the OK. According to researchers, these findings suggest that medieval Britain may have been more diverse than once believed. Sorry, man, but two... and then everyone else is for freaking... Come on. One of the researchers, Dr. Edwards, said, what did he say? The results suggested, open quotes, a diverse population with a far-flung connection who were, nonetheless, fully integrated into the fabric of daily life, close quotes. Another of the team, Dr. Sayer, said that finding was, open quotes, fascinating, close quotes. Didn't say much, did he? Because the children were buried in very different places, but had such similar DNA. Very underwhelming, as I was saying. This is the news, guys. Changes everything, I suppose. We need to rewrite all of our history. There were two people buried in the Middle Ages, in one in Kent, I guess, and one in the other one. And and they were 20% or maybe 40% African, which means, I don't know what it means, you tell me. Thank you for watching. proudly presenting the pendant of the noble one. Look at this beauty. Original custom design created by me in collaboration with Viking Jewelry. And it's my way to celebrate all of you, because as you know, I've been calling you noble ones for the last 12 years. Well, this is indeed the pendant of you, the noble ones, who are the custos veritatis, written here in Latin, and it means keeper of truth, because that's the only thing that matters. The truth, whether it offends them or not. So, available in both silver and bronze. I think my favorite is the bronze one, but they're both great. And this can be bought as a set, as we offer the original ring of the noble one, available in silver, bronze, and gold, the bracelet of the noble one, Silent Oath of Truth, and a more low-profile version of the ring for those who prefer something a little thinner, which we offer also in bronze, silver, 14-karat gold, and 18-karat gold. Use the code NOBLE1 for a 15% discount at checkout, and massive thanks to each and every single one of you, and thank you to my haters for supporting my work.